Hello, everybody. Here to talk more about fiends and places where fiends traffic in this series. Continuing on, I think this will be our 8th episode here. Our last one was just a primer on the lower planes, just talking about from Gehenna, Acheron, which isn't really a lower, but it is kind of. And then you have Betord and the Nine Hells. Then we have Gehenna, which we're going to talk about now. Then we have Hades. And then we have Carcerai, which we're going to talk about way later. And then we have the Abyss. And we ended up having Limbo. But before Limbo, we had Pandemonium. So one at a time, we're going through. Some of these we don't have as much to talk about, mainly because they're not as useful. Others, because there's just not been a ton of stuff put out there. Gehenna kind of falls into one of those. We're not going to go into 1.5 million layers of detail because there's not 1.5 million layers, and just cause. But I want to kind of give us a little bit of teasers on the different books. We have a second edition. This is actually the Planes of Conflict boxed set that we're looking at. This deals with our neutrals, both neutral good and neutral evil. You can pick up PDFs. I got mine off of DM's Guild and some other sources as well. All of this old material is still available. We kind of poked around in the 3rd edition manual of the planes last time. Likewise, we'll look at the 4th edition, which didn't give us anything. Curse you. And then we have 5e cosmology up as well. Nothing really in the Planescape box, or the Planescape box set that came for 2014. Doesn't necessarily go directly into the outer planes. It gives us a little bit more of a focus on the gate towns, the outlands, and kind of reflection of the outer planes through the interactions in the gate towns. So, but a little bit there. And obviously our 5th edition, 2014, and ironically 24, gave us more about the outer planes than our 14. But let's see what's going on with Gehenna here. Let's start at the beginning. It was mentioned in 1E that it's just three little boxes on the map, and that was it. But 2nd edition Planescape gives us a lot of goodies here. Gehenna, the Furnace of Perdition. Oh, by the way, this will be a little bit more lengthy. It's going to be audiobook-ish a little bit. Sorry in advance. Not sorry. Like to read. I like to encourage you guys to read. I know some of you don't have the time to read, so I'll read for you. Gehenna, the Furnace of Perdition, comprises exactly 4 steep volcanoes with peaks at the top and bottom and nary a flat stretch in between. The volcanoes float in an impenetrable void, each mount a layer unto itself. Any Burke knows what this means. These volcanoes are huge, literally hundreds of thousands of miles across, up and down. Still, it doesn't hide the fact that Gehenna is overall one of the smallest physical places in the planes. Doesn't mean that the plane's not boundless like all the rest. The void stretches off into empty infinity, but unlike any other outer plane, it's got a finite amount of physical, measurable ground. Sorry, I'm going to put this in here so I don't have to keep... on the other hand, what Gehenna lacks in size, it makes for in sheer mean-spiritedness. The place is totally without charity, without any concept of pity or mercy, or any other redeeming quality. This just doesn't just apply to the inhabitants. The land itself spits on the unfortunates here, and the body consider themselves lucky if they're not overrun by a lava flow or shoved off the side of a mountain. On Gehenna, it's every person for themselves, though they've got some internal laws that keep them all in line. They're really much more concerned with personal profit. They don't care if they get by helping others or stepping on them as long as they get it from somewhere. Because the plane is so inhospitable, all the petitioners here are greedy and suspicious, and they won't do anything for anyone else unless they get some sort of immediate payment for it. Pause. Planescape and 5th edition to an extent is Planescape period, consistent from 2nd edition through 5th edition, refers to people that die and go to the outer planes after their deaths as either petitioners or proxies. So if you're reading those terms, just that's what it means. I died for whatever reason, alignment notwithstanding, whether it's alignment or the god I worshipped, the deity that my character worshipped, or whatever, puts me into this place. I become a petitioner until I either am destroyed infinitely or I ascend to becoming a proxy. Different discussion for a different stream, but just some clarity. So, the plane is the home to the Yugoloths, one of the few planar races that aren't spawned from petitioners. Legend has it that the Yugoloths came from the Grey Waste, came here from the Grey Wastes, perhaps to escape the constant battles of the Blood War, perhaps for other more nefarious reasons. Still, the Yugoloths pose one of the main dangers of the plane, and a person would be well advised to steer clear of them for both physical and spiritual safety. Gehenna has 4 layers. These layers are in order from the astral, from the top to the bottom, so to speak. Kalas, the gentle land, Chamada the molten, Mungoth the burning ice, and Krangoth the dead furnace. Each layer has its own physical peculiarities, which are described under that layer's area. But some things are common to each, and we're not going to get into every layer. We'll see. We'll get into some of it. As noted above, there isn't a single level place on the face of the 4 mountains, at least not a naturally occurring one. Plenty of folks take the time to clear off a spot for themselves that they can sleep on without fear of rolling off, but most of those spots don't last too long. Something about the plane just seems to hate a level surface, and most ledges, those not formed by powers anyway, have a way of breaking off and carrying those on them to a painful doom. And here's some weird art of an adventurer running into some of the locals. These would be Linquas, Planescape race. Anyone who trips and falls here is most likely dead, or soon to be that way. A body can't can't ignore the jagged stones of the furnaces like he could a monster. He takes falling damage equal to the distance rolled in feet, and he keeps rolling until he either fetches up against an outcropping or until he falls off the face of the layer, tumbling into oblivion that waits in the void beyond. Saving throw after saving throw after saving throw. If they have bad enough luck, yes, they will roll off the edge of that mountain. Volcano here, volcano there. Gravity works for whichever side of the volcano you're on. It works the way it's supposed to until you get to the edge. So yes, you can fall upwards, and you'll see some dude as you're climbing up the volcano tumbling off into space. Even though it's weird. Planescape can mess with people's brains if you're not really good at describing it and making sure to give your players spatial clues. Okay, so the slopes on the plane can be as gentle as 5 degrees and as much as 80 degrees, and that's on the scalable parts. More difficult are the overhang, sheer cliffs, and more than sheer bluffs. The footing is tricky everywhere, and make sure you're watching your step. Gehenna is not called the fourfold furnaces for nothing. Except for Krangoth, the layers are all hotbeds of volcanic activity. Every place the magma has broached the surface is called a furnace. Some are hotter than others, and some are dead. Still, the constant feeling of a slow boil of molten rock and metal beneath the surface lingers, even if there's no furnaces nearby, even if all the furniture on the layers are dead and cold. All the layers sport caverns beneath their surfaces. Those of Kalas cave in under the heat of the magma regularly, and only the most addle-covered of all the clueless, this is Planescape for dummies from not Planescape, would ever consider making one a home. Chamada's caverns are even more dangerous. It takes about 10 minutes for a cavern to fill with boiling rock, and then the caverns themselves are too far hot for anyone to step into to begin with. Instead of being caverns, they're more like giant air bubbles within the magma. People only enter these bubbles looking for a way to get to Mungoth. Sometimes the cavern holds off the lava a little bit longer. These usually have tunnels or passages to the outer shell of that layer. The 3rd layer, Mungoth, their caverns are more habitable. In fact, they're the most comfortable places on this cold layer, and they're fiercely contested. The cave complexes of Krangoth are dark and cold just to the outside the dead land is. It's a home to a variety of beings, each of which regards light as inimical and something best destroyed, along with whatever happens to be carrying it. It's a chill, dank place without much than anyone would really want to begin with. The ground generates each layer's light and heat, not some sun or burning star in the sky. On some of the layers, the heat's enough to cause non-natives to burst into flames. The light's red, cast by the slagged rock and heated metal of each layer, and as the layer cools, so does the light die. Thus it is that light constantly rises and falls around the plane as fresh fumaroles and geysers of lava sprout up and cool off. A dark void fills the sky above each layer. Indeed, the utter blackness of each layer begins dozens of feet to several miles above the surface of the ground. No light can or does penetrate this void, except for the burning glow of the next layer, and even sound seems to disappear into this. Of course, the creatures known as Slathroths seem to have no difficulty in seeing their prey, and there's little doubt that there are other creatures out there that can make the Slathroths look feeble. But precious few beings have the power to see through the murky void of Gehenna. The Fiends might be able to, and it's said that a solar sword can pierce through any darkness, but that doesn't really leave a lot more for anyone else. All right. The River Styx is one thing I want to read about because the River Styx does run through all of the lower layers. However, the River Styx flows only through the first layer, Colossus. It's the biggest river on that layer, and it hurtles through gorges and canyons of Colossus with breathtaking speed. At certain points, the canyons give way to incredibly high ledges, and the Styx shoots spuming over the edge, taking all and sundry with it, falling to the jagged rocks below in a crash of polluted water. Some make a living ferrying berks around the Styx. The best remember where the waterfall swirls and eddies are located. Those who aren't so adept usually wind up so much shattered wreckage in the pools below. None of them are as good as the Marinloths, but the most experienced might give the Yugoloths a run for their money. Frankly, that's all they really care to do. The River Styx is of standard strength here on Gehenna. Anyone touching it or drinking of its waters loses their memories and their abilities. Same as it would be on the Abyss, same as it would be in Hades, the Grey Way, same as it would be in the Nine Hells. So now there's a bunch of extra stuff here that goes with Planescape. We're not going to worry about magical conditions, spell keys, and all that. But for those that are it does bear mentioning. DMs, we can play with the rules of magic. We can play with the rules of gravity. We can play with the laws of physics when we get to the outer planes. The pure description of Gehenna defies any logical understandings of gravity, light, heat, or any of that. So don't worry about, it's the outer planes are our playgrounds. That's where we can get freaky, get fancy, and just get creative. Just make sure you're being consistent in the application of them. But yeah, you can diminish spell powers. You can increase other spell powers. If you're casting anything of a fiery bend, if it's an evocation spell that affects flame, and you're on Gehenna, it actually does more damage. It'll do maximum damage, when you're using it in combat, for example. Not saying you have to, but just be aware. Built into 2nd edition Planescape, there is a full system of adjustments and spell keys and diminishing spells and effects and all that went with it. So you can have some fun here and quote-unquote cheat if you feel like you're a rules-bound DM and you want to go a little bit extra. So anyway, that was our 2nd edition Planescape Planes of Conflict. This is an old box set. Would recommend picking it up if you're starting to get into the Outer Planes. I'd get it all. But 3rd edition, Manual of the Planes, the one I told you, if you must get one book, go ahead and pick it up. Let's see what it has to say about Gehenna. Now, this one is picturing it a little bit different, but similar. The 4 volcanoes all floating near each other, just representation. But the bleak, let me go single page here again and get bigger. The bleak eternity of Gehenna. It is a plane without charity, mercy, or pity. It's the oven of perdition, the fourfold furnaces. It's where Yugoloths cavort over endless volcanic slopes. Gehenna's top layers border both Hades and the 9 Hells, so it's not a pleasant place. Floating in an impenetrable, infinite void are volcanic mountains, seemingly without base or peak. They are only finite in the strictest sense of the word, measuring hundreds of thousands of miles in each direction. A single volcanic mountain dominates each of the 4 layers of Gehenna, though lesser volcanic earthbergs drift and sometimes smash into the greater mountains. There is no naturally occurring level place in any of the layers. All the slopes are at least 45 degrees and many are akin to sheer cliffs. Gehenna's fiendish inhabitants have carved artificial ledges, some large enough for entire cities, and switchback paths to connect them. But those edifices not carved by native Yugoloths or deities have a tendency to break apart, sending their builders on long, sliding falls down the mountain. Gehenna's 4 layers are Kalas, Chamada, Mungoth, and Krangoth. Each layer is differentiated from the other by its degree of volcanic activity. Powerful entities that possess realms on Gehenna include many of the lords of the Yugoloth, as well as Melith, the Lich Lord, and Menmor, deity of evil cloud giants. The realm of Manzikorian, an Illithid mind flayer deity, Illithid/mind flayer, one of their deities, was once located here, but he was slain by Tenebrous, the name taken by the demon lord Orcus when he first returned from Annihilation. See the Dead Gods series. Wonderful, wonderful. Accordingly, Manzikorian's realm has started to crumble, its deity now gone. So some basic traits. These are going to be in third edition terms, mechanical terms, but they'll make enough sense for you to kind of build your version of Gehenna around should you decide to do it. And normal gravity. Gravity is similar to the material plane, but naturally occurring volcanic mountains seem to float free in an infinitely larger void. Gravity is normal on the steep slopes of a mountain, and a fall rumbles victims many miles until a chance ledge catches them, or the continued rolling abrasions of the fall shred the victim. The idea is it's so vast, hundreds of thousands of miles, you're probably not going to fall off the edge of it. You're going to grind yourself into a paste before you ever notice it. Time is normal here. The plane itself is considered infinite in size. The impenetrable void of Gehenna is infinite, but each volcanic mountain is finite. Each is far larger than the largest known landmass on the material plane, however, hundreds of thousands of miles. Divinely morphic. Menmor and other deities can alter Gehenna's mountainous landscape. Ordinary creatures find Gehenna is as alterable as the material plane. No elemental or energy traits, no bonuses. Mildly evil aligned. Good characters on Gehenna suffer a -2 penalty on all charisma-based checks. Magic typically works normal here. So links from Gehenna. We're just, nice and quick read here. If you guys don't mind, hopefully by now you're used to my reading and you're enjoying it. But let's go through the third edition book. A little bit better put together, not as more condensed in its information, but less detailed, if that makes sense, than the Planes of Conflict books and the second edition Planescape stuff. Like all the lower planes, Gehenna has the river Styx flowing through at least its first layer, Collis. In fact, it's the biggest river on the layer, and it hurtles through the gorges. Ironically, it's like a copy-paste from second edition. However, portals to the other planes are fairly common, as are portals between the layers of Gehenna. They usually appear as bottomless black chasms. Sometimes they're marked as portals, but sometimes Yugoloths mark actual bottomless chasms as portal by mistake or with malice. The Yugoloths, masters of schemes, are most at home on Gehenna, though sages note that Yugoloths actually originated in Hades. But the Yugoloths have been on Gehenna longer than most of the deities who have now had their realms there. Gehennan petitioners. Petitioners of Gehenna are the refuse of the plains. Greedy and grasping, they care only for themselves, expect no favors from such a petitioner, unless proof of immediate recompense is at hand. And like many of the other outer planes, petitioners on Gehenna are more willful, traveling from layer to layer on their own personal quests for power. They're looking for the ultimate exercise in free will, though they're destined to never find it. Gehenna's petitioners have the following special qualities. They're immune to poison and acid. They have fire, cold, and resist much higher. They have sure-footed. They can move around on difficult terrain without any issue. And they have bonuses on climbing checks because they natives of this ooky place. Movement, combat, rules. A couple little features here. This is kind of a couple examples. Then we'll look at the quick readings in the 5th edition. Then we'll be done with Gehenna. Features of Gehenna. Each layer of Gehenna, called a mount, is slightly different, but each burns with an evil will. The lava flows seem to seek out the casual traveler, and fissures open under a visitor's feet as if the ground itself hungers. As on Carcerai, the sloping earth itself provides light, so shadows stretch upwards. Creepy. The ground is glowing, and the light goes upwards from it. Callus, the air of Gehenna's first and lowest layer, has a crimson tint near the ground, due to the magma flows and pyroclastic ash, but it quickly fades to black no more than a few dozen feet overhead. Strangely, the next Mount Chamada is visible in the darkness overhead, though it's so far away it burns like a small, bloody moon. The slopes of Callus are streaked with waterfalls and cloaked in steam. The falls never find the bottom of the layer, either evaporating or disappearing into fissures. The mightiest waterfalls are those made by the river Styx, as it makes tumultuous passage across this forbidding layer. Teardrop Palace. Located along the Styx, a nautilus-shaped pagoda crouches with 2 smaller shrines set up beside it. A wrought iron fence encircles Teardrop Palace, which occupies an obviously deity-carved ledge. The pagoda measures miles on each side, as do the lesser shrines. A crowded bazaar thrives between the two smaller shrines filled with milling Yugoloths, petitioners, devils, demons, other outsiders, and the occasional mortal visitor. The bazaar buys and sells everything, the ultimate black market, because almost everything has been stolen from some other part of the Great Wheel. Prices are high and pickpockets are a constant threat, but the market has a reputation for selling exotic, hard-to-find items. Our second layer, Chamada. Well, before we read Chamada, let's do our sidebar so I can flow through it. Sidebar, the crawling city. And this is what you're actually seeing in the art here. A great metropolis of obsidian and ash, the crawling city moves across Gehenna, moving from layer to layer at the will of its master, the general of Gehenna. The crawling city moves by virtue of thousands of fiendish fire-immune legs grafted under the massive lower deck of the city, allowing the metropolis to cling to the steepest cliff face of Gehenna and slowly ford the broadest river of lava. The general is an Ultraloth whose power is said to approach that of a demi-deity. In theory, all Yugoloths answer the general, although the Yugoloth's proclivity for plots and webs of deception mean that many have divided loyalties. The city has low barracks for devilish, demonic, and other assorted elite mercenaries and siege towers housing potent war magic. There's also a war academy where brilliant fiendish strategists teach their lore to up-and-coming officers bound for the Blood War, and massive factories where smithies constantly turn out the latest in fiendish military hardware. The crawling city itself, in all the millennia of its existence, has never directly entered the Blood War. Ancient prophecies tell that should it ever do so, the Blood War will finally reach a decisive conclusion in an apocalyptic final battle. This is kind of heating back to our creation mythology. If you're coming into my series late, go check out the other ones. The claim that Yugoloth were the first of the fiends and devils and demons were their offspring, and the Yugoloth are actually in charge of the Blood War. There's a lot of stuff that gives you the option to do that, not required. Anyways, Chamada. The second mount of Gehenna is the most savage. The slopes burn with constantly flowing magma so thick and solid that solid cool ground is rare and so bright that the glare blots out the sky itself. Cascading lava rivers sometimes harden and briefly dam the fiery flow, only to explosively burst forth in new directions. Vents unexpectedly open, spewing fresh ejecta, and miniature volcanoes are common. The air itself is usually filled with feather-soft gray ash, which falls everywhere like dread snow, often dropping visibility to zero. I like this place. Mimicry. From the slopes of Chamada, Mimicry appears as a small moon, about 2,000 feet in diameter. It floats in splendid isolation above the burning mount, covered in spires, steeples, and less dramatic structures connected by a web-like network of streets. Everything is clean, the buildings are comfortable and in excellent repair, and every citizen of Mimicry is quite polite. Excellent goods of all sorts can be had at the trading post, and Mimicry is an established stop along several trading routes that crisscross the Outer Plains. What most visitors never realize, and hope to never realize, is that Mimicry, buildings, people, and all, is one vast creature that mimics a town. Sometimes Mimicry absorbs a visitor into itself completely, but other times it allows visitors to leave completely unharmed. If even a single drop of his visitor's blood spills onto any surface in this city, Mimicry is able to duplicate that visitor exactly, including memories up to the point when the blood was spilled. If a citizen of Mimicry is ever forcibly removed from the town, it immediately dies like a limb severed from a body. That's cool. The god of mimics, man. If you like torturing your people, yeah, have some fun with that. Next up, the Tower Arcane. Fun read here, by the way. This tower rises high above the lava flows and ash clouds of Chamada, decorated with blades and spikes that promise pain and death to unwelcome visitors. Yugoloth wizards control the tower with function as records vault for the Yugoloth race. The history of the Yugoloths can be found here, though the information is well protected and heavily encrypted with glyphs of warding symbols and other protective spells. The interior halls of the Tower Arcane support the bodies of flayed petitioners dangling from chains. The wizards use the blood of these petitioners and the occasional unwelcome visitor to pen their history. Torture paraphernalia line any walls not given over to bookshelves and sealed archives. Deep below the tower lies a vast library of particularly ghastly contracts with mortals extending for miles. The most potent protective spells in the wizard's arsenals protect the sanctity of the library from encroachment by molten rock or extraplanar thieves. Each contract is inscribed on the living skin of a petitioner burned in with magic and branding irons. Petitioners are strung on chains like popcorn on a string for miles in parallel lines of agony. The only thing on the mind of any given petitioner is its own particular contract and its personal pain. Ooh, so yeah, creepy as hell. Remember, Yugoloths don't need your soul to reform. They spring up on their own. They do not form out of petitioners' larvae like your devils, and to a lesser extent your demons do. So if you make a deal with a Yugoloth, this is your deal. This is this is what they do with you at the end of things. Not fun. Mungoth. The third mount is far less volcanically active than either Chamada or Kalas. In fact, it's quite cold and often covered by snowfalls. The light of scattered volcanic vents is akin to the light cast by a full moon, making navigation across Mungoth's icy slopes difficult. Even that light is sometimes snuffed out by a heavy snow and ashfall. The combined snow and acidic ash are dangerous to travelers without shelter. The ice that accumulates on Mungoth's slope gives a -4 check on penalty on climb checks for 3rd edition rules. Makes it hard. Valley of the Outcast, one of the sites here on Mungoth. A deep chasm contains a well-hidden realm sheltered from the ever-present acidic snow. Built of equal parts basaltic rock and giant bones is a rough castle. The castle is scaled to the proportions of its master, an outcast fire giant wizard named Tatsuo. Her 8 siblings, fellow outcasts, also reside in the castle. Like their sister, all are either wizards or sorcerers. Yugoloths of the lair have several interlocking contracts with Tatsuo, which helps ensure the valley's safety should her enemies ever find her. Tatsuo never names those enemies, but her predicament makes her sympathetic to the plight of travelers seeking asylum. Thus, the Valley of Outcasts doubles as a way station for visitors in need, but only if they can find it. The last layer of Gehenna, Krangoth. The fourth mount of Gehenna, the Dead Furnace, is devoid of volcanic activity. It went inactive millennia ago. The great mountain of the lair is a darkened pillar tumbling in the night. The lair is shrouded in silence. No wind stirs and no light glimmers. Krangoth is dead. Petitioners are rare, and those that move about on this lair have learned to keep quiet, lest Melif hear them. Hope Lorn. An artificially maintained ledge holds a precisely fashioned complex of obsidian. Dim reddish lights are visible in tiny slit-like windows throughout the complex. This is Hope Lorn, the stronghold of Melif the Lich Lord. Hope Lorn is a mortuary city where sarcophagi glow like streetlights and necromantic energies dance wisp-like over every boulevard. Here undead are welcome, but not so the living or petitioners, whom Melif regards as pathetic losers unable to properly manage the passage of their mortal lives. You suck. Go become undead and come talk to me. In Hope Lorn, Melif and a cabal of liches and other powerful undead spellcasters conduct their undying research into the natures of life, death, and being. Sometimes Melif and his assembly capture fiends for outrageous experiments, though they are careful never to capture Yugoloths, lest the wrath of that race fall squarely on Hope Lorn. Besides, it's rumored that Melif was once a Yugoloth himself before he steeped himself in the eldritch arts and eventual lichdom. Maybe he was an Arcanoloth that went lich mode. So that's all we're going to read out of the third. We're going to finish up. We're almost at making some good time. Again, Manual of the Plains didn't have nothing directly about Gehenna. 5th edition current stuff. So the Gate Town, a neutral-facing location that connects to Gehenna, might be your player's first encounter, especially if you're doing the Turn of Fortune's Wheel, or if you find yourself playing around with the Vecna Eve of Ruin. That does a lot of travel through the Outlands. But really quick, Torch is a den of thieves built on the slopes of 3 volcanic spires that rise from a blood-red marsh. Formed from hardened molten rock, the pillars alternate in spewing blazing streams of pyrophoric gas and providing the light and heat to the town. Clustered buildings retreat from the pestilent swamp, climbing each spire to its steep walled-off heights. Notorious kingpins, brazen embezzlers, and brooding criminal masterminds look down on petty larcenists from their towering hideouts, but danger still looms even for those at the top. Without warning, the hollow peak erupts with sporadic jets of lava and flaming rock slide, or as the locals say, trouble above and trouble below. The people of Torch are crooked, greedy, and cruel. Townsfolk each eye each other with suspicion as they pass through the sloped alleys, clutching their purses in one hand and brandishing cautionary blades in the other. Grifters, bullies, and bandits serve as the minions for Torch's numerous criminal syndicates, seedy organizations preoccupied with robbing each other and destroying rival guilds. Sounds like player characters would fit in perfectly here, don't it? And they think they're the good guys the whole time, which is even funnier. The Gate Town is controlled by the Family, a tenebrous inner circle of crime bosses who enforce some semblance of honor among the thieves of Torch. Admission into the Family is by invite only. The full roster of members is shrouded in secrecy as the venues of their conclaves. Even so, some names in Torch carry more weight than others, and locals can't help but speculate about such folks' involvement in the town's hidden oligarchy. So, frickin' straight up mafia town, Torch. And that leads us to Gehenna. 2014 didn't give us a whole lot. Take us 10 seconds to 30 seconds to read it, then we'll look at 2024. Then we're going to be done real quick. All right, Gehenna is a place of suspicion and greed. It's the birthplace of Yugoloths, which dwell here in great numbers. We're differing from what we read a little while ago in 5th edition. It's not the end of the world. A volcanic mountain dominates each of the 4 layers of Gehenna, and lesser volcanic earthbergs drift in the air and smash into the greater mountains. The rocky slopes of the plain make movement here difficult and dangerous. The ground inclines at least 45 degrees almost everywhere. In place, steep cliffs and deep canyons present more challenging obstacles. Hazards include volcanic fissures that vent noxious fumes or searing flames. Gehenna has no room for mercy or compassion. The fiends living here are among the greediest and most selfish in all of the multiverse. And 2024 DM's Guide, a wee bit more. I'm not going to read this. I'm going to see what they say about Gehenna Adventures, because same stuff, just really, a really quick summary on it. But Gehenna is the place of suspicion and greed with no space for mercy or compassion. Adventures on this plane might be an opportunity to explore themes of betrayal, examining how characters behave when tensions run high and they can trust no one, perhaps not even each other. Characters might encounter people in need who turn out to be Yugoloths in disguise, pitting the characters' growing suspicion against their empathy and compassion. They might make their way to the Teardrop Palace on Callus to purchase something they can't find anywhere else. Remember the big old market over there. This bustling market, crowded with fiends and the occasional mortal visitor, offers all manner of forbidden and sinister goods for sale. Its name comes from its shape, the point on its palace uphill side, so it diverts the ever-present lava flow to either side of the structures. Or they could try to infiltrate the Tower Arcane in search of some great secret from the Yugoloth's ancient history. The tower, a sinister structure adorned with blades and spiked and guarded by Arcanoloths, stands somewhere on Chamada. It is rumored to hold Yugoloth's history and the records of their contracts. And that's it, y'all. That's Hades, man. Or not fucking Hades. Excuse me, I saw Hades. That's Gehenna. That's our lair just to the inside of the 9 hells. I'm going to do the lesser ones and we'll do the bigger ones because we'll probably do like a video on each of the layers of the 9 hells and a video on a bunch of the layers of the abyss. So I wanted to get the basic ones out of the way. But make no mistake, they're not basic, man. The idea of Gehenna is really cool. The master race of the fiends, the Yugoloths, come from there. And you really get a lot of license to play with your creativity when you're designing your adventures within Gehenna, how you're placing your structures, your cities, and all that kind of stuff. But all right. So hey, thanks for hanging out. That's my little video here on the first of our lower plane videos, Gehenna, possible, probable, current home to the Yugoloths, possible birthing ground therein. It's up to you. The General of Gehenna is mentioned in all of the editions, including from first edition through 5th edition. So it can bear fruit if you're using a lot of Yugoloths within your campaigns. It's somewhere you can send your people to do some side stuff where where you control the encounter volume. Gehenna is not known for having legions of devils and demons marching up and down the slopes doing stuff. The mountains themselves try to kill things, so people kind of keep to themselves. So you're getting a little bit more of a limited scope as you get to play with Gehenna adventures. But all right, thanks for hanging out with me. Likes, follows, subscribes are appreciated. Join us over on Twitch. Find my stuff there. We're there Tuesdays through Fridays, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Leave me a comment here. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to talk about some more of this. But thanks for being here. Thank you for your time. We'll see you soon.